Good Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock and time for Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready for a divisional game against the Bengals, one they absolutely have to have at 1 o'clock down in Cincinnati. And some news from out in Berea today. Guys not practicing. Denzel Ward, ankle/illness, not able to go. Not terribly concerned with that one. A.J. Green, knee, that one's a little more concerning. James Hudson, illness. Anthony Schwartz still in the concussion protocol. All not practicing again, getting ready for that game against the Bengals. The Browns did make a move as well. Sione Takitaki put on the injured reserve list with that torn ACL, and the Browns signed Reggie Ragland out of the practice squad, off the practice squad of the Las Vegas Raiders. Ragland, a 7-year vet, was a really good linebacker, second-round pick out of Alabama. Let's welcome in Jeff Risdon, BrownsWire.com. Jeff, injuries have hit that linebacking core hard, and you know, I saw the name Reggie Ragland, I'm like, that's pretty good at this point of the year.
Yeah, the fact that you can get a guy that has that level of experience and accomplishment, it's a good find. Good job there by the Browns to find him. Look, he was on a practice squad for a reason at this point of the season. Reggie Ragland he's a similar style of player to what Taki is. Kind of a bigger guy, not necessarily the most fluid guy, but a good downhill, good tackler. His problem is just that he's very slow to get out of the blocks. He's the guy that, you know, if he's not anticipating it, he's just not going to be able to catch up to the play. That's been the book on him his entire career. But, I mean, you can do a lot worse than him at this point of the year. And that role in the defense, look, it's hard to know what's going on with Joe Wood's defense, to be honest with you. They did get better this past week, but the mixing and matching that they've had to do, he can fill that role if they need him to for, 10 to 15 snaps a game and not get them killed. He can rush the passer. That's one thing that he does do very well. And if you go back to the last time that the Browns played the Bengals, Taki happened to have a sack. Maybe that's a little foreboding there.
All right, some other things that are going on today. Browns found out Donovan Peoples-Jones was the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. It's the first time that a non-kicker on the Browns has been Special Teams Player of the Week in a long, long time with that punt return. And he kind of has been progressing. You saw in the Buccaneers game there were some where he had some decent returns, and then he finally broke that one against Texans.
He did, and I want to give some of the credit. Now, obviously, he deserves a lot of the credit. I thought the Browns blocked that incredibly well. I thought that they stayed home on their blocks. They didn't get out of position to go try to find somebody. They did a really good job with it, and he read it very well. And I think you can see him, like you said, in the Buccaneers game, and you saw it again in Houston. His trust in his blockers and understanding where the play is supposed to go, I think, is really improving, and that's something that does come with more experience. And to your point, is Josh Cribbs the last one who won? There wasn't a kicker. I think so. It's been a long time.
And deservedly so. There hasn't been anybody that's done that in the return game in a long time. All right, something that will have to improve if the Browns are going to get a win is the play of Deshaun Watson. Watson back out on the practice field, getting things done in Berea. And you see that? That would be a little bit of an RPO that they're working on, the ride and the motion, and then getting the shoulders turned and squared, and a lot of motion again, and you're going to see more of that RPO action. Jeff, you have seen Deshaun Watson. You have covered Deshaun Watson with the Texans. He did not. That was not what you would expect from Deshaun Watson. So, what do you think elements Kevin Stefanski maybe held back and might add as you move forward?
Yeah, I do think that more of the RPO action is something that's something that the Browns haven't done. That's not something that Baker Mayfield could do, or pretty much any of the quarterbacks before him, going back to maybe Manziel, which we don't really want to talk about. He's good at that, and where he's at his best, though, is when he can throw deep off of that, and that's not something that the Browns have done a lot of the play action and going deep. And I think they're going to start working those elements in. look, what I saw from Deshaun Sunday was a guy who clearly hadn't played football in a while. I don't necessarily think that it was like the mental aspect of the game. I think the speed of the defense, and even though the Texans defense is not very good, and they were without their best cornerback in Derek Stingley, I think that just the game speed and the coordination that it takes to complete passes when you've got guys flying around in all different angles. I think that was a little more advanced than what Deshaun expected. Look, you just cannot replicate that in practice as hard as they try. As hard as we see them working there in Berea, you can't get that game action. It's just not the same. And I think he struggled with that a little bit. I think that will get better. I was a little concerned by how low he was throwing the ball. That is something that back in Houston was never really much of an issue. He's always been really good at throwing it where, especially if he's going over the middle, where only the receiver is going to catch it. He's not going to miss high where you're going to get the tip drill interception or anything like that. So maybe he overemphasized that Sunday. I don't know. I'm expecting a better Deshaun Watson. Look, I'm not expecting him to come out and outduel Joe Burrow. I just don't think that's going to happen. That's not how the Browns are going to win. Not this year anyways. But, getting him to where he can, maybe push an edge or an RPO where, like we talk about all the time, Dave, having Kareem or Dearness even in the backfield with Nick Chubb, having multiple options back there that he can run a multiple option play. That's something that Houston did really well. And they didn't always have the best running backs or tight ends around him, and he found really good ways to work out of that. So I would like to see them cater a little bit more to that because, again, in Houston, look, this is the best offensive line Deshaun's ever played behind. I covered those Texans lines. They went to the playoffs one year where Ode Abushi was their best offensive lineman. So the fact that he's got time back there is probably something that's a little bit unusual for him as well. And when you're always harassed and harangued, it can take a little adjustment. Like, shouldn't I have to be fleeing here at some point? So I think there's a little bit of it's almost like uncomfortable by being comfortable, if that makes any sense.
Well, the other thing that has happened is the Browns have beaten Joe Burrow 4 times now. So Burrow has not beaten the Browns yet. So Burrow talked about the importance of not falling behind the Browns for the Bengals.
Against this team, you can't get behind early because they run the ball so well. They have such good pass rushers. That's really where they want to be. So you have to score points early. You have to move the ball and keep their offense on the sideline early because they run the ball so well.
And that's been the secret to the Browns' success against the Bengals. They've gotten out to big leads and gotten after Joe Burrow.
Absolutely, and that is the recipe for success. I don't believe the Bengals scored in the first half last game. I know they didn't score in the first quarter. The Browns were up 11-0 at pretty quickly. That game was on Halloween. That is the recipe for beating them. Now they have changed that script a little bit, but again, if the Browns can run the ball in this game and establish that they can take the ball down the field, opening kickoff, touchback, go 11 plays, 75 yards, get a touchdown, cap it off with a 2-point conversion, which the Bengals are terrible at defending. You're in business right then. Then already Joe Burrow's coming out with oh man, I gotta go against now Myles Garrett knows he can tee off on me. The Browns smothered my run game pretty well. Who knows what's going on with Joe Mixon? That's exactly what the Browns need to do, and they've done it so well against Joe Burrow. It's weird because the perception of Joe Burrow from Browns fans is a little different than it is in a lot of other markets where they're like, that guy's incredible. Cleveland hasn't really seen that, and a lot of that is because the Browns have controlled the game script. That's something that they definitely have to do again on Sunday.
Well, the other thing that the Browns have done is run the football. So Nick Chubb, a guy that's been really successful doing that, talked about the success the Browns have had against the Bengals as well as having Deshaun Watson and what that might mean.
It's a new game. It's a new week. We can't go over what we did in the past. We got to look at us as today and right now. So all that's happened in the past, it don't really, do anything for us now. So come in today, get back to work. It's exciting for sure. Deshaun's a great player, a special player, can make amazing plays. So I think with him in a combination of what we already do would be great.
And I think you're going to see lighter and lighter boxes as Deshaun Watson gets a little bit more comfortable.
Lighter box against Nick Chubb. My goodness, that's very nice. And you can see the inflect. Nick Chubb we've been around him enough to know that he's not a guy that gives a lot of emotion or intensity in his interviews. He lit up pretty nicely there when he was talking about Deshaun and the potential. So I think Nick knows what's going on with this offense. He seems to be pretty confident that he will be able to have success with Deshaun, and because of Deshaun, but also help Deshaun have some success too. Look, when you've got a running back like Nick Chubb, that makes your life easier, even if you're not a good quarterback. When you are a good quarterback, and Deshaun Watson is a very good quarterback, and I think he's going to start showing that. And it really does make this a very difficult team to defend, because if you go light and if you have to, defend that, drop that linebacker, or go into full-time nickel, try stopping Nick Chubb with 5. It ain't gonna happen. So that's the whole crux of where this team's heading for the rest of this season. Let's hope that they get some good play out of it, and Deshaun lives up to his end of the bargain, because we know from past experience Nick Chubb is going to live up to his end.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little defense. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
So I just wanted to put in my 2 cents on what I saw Sunday with Deshaun Watson. Basically, I didn't see what everybody else saw. What I saw was what I call an overflow of emotion, where he thought everything was going to be one way. He finally got out there, all this build-up, and then those boos hit him, and everything just came crashing down. Boom. And, emotions can take over your body, and it can control your body, and I believe that happened to him. That explains why he couldn't get that ball up. I mean, anybody could have got that ball up and then not constantly throwing it down, and he did. And I think emotions just took over his body. So I think next week we can start thinking about rust and all that. But this week it was just emotion. That's all. Have a good one.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, these guys are human, so I could certainly see if that was the case. I hope he's right, because that means it would be significantly better this week.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it was in Houston where everything happened and where he had such, a mixed history, because remember, before everything went down, he was the conquering hero that was leading that team. Look, I mean, they were blowing out the Chiefs in a playoff game. They wound up losing that one when the Chiefs went on, but that was the highest point in Houston football, like in Texans history. And he was responsible for that great moment. And, one of the last times that everybody saw him was where he beat Josh Allen, was the better quarterback on the field than Josh Allen. That guy is still there. But I agree with the caller. There was definitely some emotion to it, but I do think that there was some rust as well. But he's going to play through both of those. He got through the worst reception he's going to get was last weekend. And being in Houston, you saw Mrs. McNair, the owner's wife, turn her back to him when he went to shake his hands. Like that can't, like you said, he is a human, like he's going to have those emotions and, the feeling of like, wow, I'm playing in the stadium, but I'm not wearing, the battle red. Like it's a very strange situation. I understand if Deshaun was impacted by it. I don't think he'll let on that he was, but to agree with the caller, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever that he was clearly impacted by it, because I think from watching him in the past to watching him what I saw Sunday, that was a guy that wasn't right in the head, and that's not typically who he is. I do think that weighed a lot on him. And again, let's hope that that's all it was. So when he does figure out the rust and get a little bit more chemistry with his receivers, that you don't have to worry about something like that again.
All right, Myles Garrett, take a look at this. He's got the banged up shoulder, has been beat up since the car accident where he flipped his car speeding, and he's getting after it. Take a look at the squat there. That is a whole heck of a lot of weight. And if he's not 100%, imagine what he can do when he's 100%. All right, on the backside of this, the Bengals offensive line has given up 34 sacks, 89 pressures on the season. 34 sacks, 89 pressures on the season. Outside of Myles Garrett, 10 sacks, 27 pressures. No one on the Browns has more than 2.5 sacks and 9 pressures. So a lot of, pressure, if you will, on Myles Garrett to get it done again against Joe Burrow.
My back just hurts from watching Myles try to do
know.
Well, my goodness. Wow. It's like putting a Buick up over his head. Yeah, so the last game that the Browns played against the Bengals, again, Halloween night, Browns got 5 sacks in that game. Since then, the Bengals have played 5 games and given up just 5 sacks. So they have improved, and that's not coincidentally when their fortunes really started to take off and get a lot better. They have found ways to protect Joe Burrow better. One of the ways that they've done that is that they have kept in tight ends and done a little bit more chipping, and that has worked. Now that they've tried that against Myles in the past, and he's made it, just render him useless, as Myles does. He's a fantastic football player. This is another week where they need somebody like the last time they played. Isaiah Thomas chipped in a sack. Taki got a sack. You saw Taven Bryan get a sack and a really nice other pressure. That's going to have to happen again. But the Bengals have shorn that up. They are getting the ball out a little bit quicker from Joe Burrow's hands as well. He is a guy that will hold the ball too long and does create some of his own pressure and own sacks. They seem to be doing a better job of making him more aware of that and getting that ball out a little bit quicker. They do not run the ball well. Who knows what's going on with Joe Mixon? Samaje Perine is not the same type of threat. I don't want to discount him, but if you can force them to throw, you can still get pressure on this team. But again, if you're counting on Myles to generate, over half of your pressures and get, 2/3 of your sacks, it's probably not a real strong game plan. It might work against Cincinnati, but this is not the same Cincinnati team that they saw, 5-6 weeks ago. This is a team that's playing really well right now and has shorn up their offensive line. I know that their season-long stats don't show it, but over the last month, they have been one of the better teams in they've allowed just 3.6 sack percentage over the last 3 weeks. That's 9th in the league. So they are getting better. So don't just assume that Myles Garrett and everybody else is going to have the same type of day that they did last time or last year when they beat the snot out of them too.
All right, Jeremy Fowler, top upset pick of Week 14. That's ESPN.com. He's going with the Browns, +6 over the Bengals. Cleveland has won 5 straight over Cincinnati. One of those mysterious matchup problems for Cincinnati until the Bengals change that. Browns' defense has settled down as of late, giving Deshaun Watson time to find his footing. Let me ask you this, too. I'm under the opinion, I think Kevin Stefanski likely held a couple of wrinkles back to this offense. Whatever they are, do you think that, and what do you think some of them might be?
I agree with you on that, and I do think that you're going to see more RPO action specifically designed at one of the things that Deshaun was really good at was finding the weak link on the defense and attacking that repeatedly. Some of that credit goes to the old Texans coach Bill O'Brien, and he used to do that at Penn State too. So that maybe that has permeated in, but I like the idea. of doing RPOs and hitting short passes off it where you can run off of it. You can use the speed of Donovan Peoples-Jones and hit a flare out of the backfield, hit a tight end screen. There are weapons there that the Browns can use to do that. And I don't think they did a lot against Houston. I think they realized that that's a really, really bad football team in Houston. Let's not use our top plays here. Let's save some of those for another time when you need it. And they're going to need it against Cincinnati. That might be the best team in the AFC right now that they got to play this week. I do still like the matchup, by the way. I don't disagree with Jeremy Fowler that the Browns can do this. But it's definitely going to take some more creativity on offense. It's going to take a little bit better execution, sharper, certainly from Deshaun, but also from the receivers, in figuring out where he's going to throw the ball. He's not Jacoby Brissett. He's not Baker Mayfield. He has a different release point. He has different timing on his throws and how it comes out and how it's going to hit you. Whether the tip of the ball is, 15 degrees or 30 degrees angle, that does make a difference. And it is a different sensation to try to catch that ball. So I do think that's going to be better. Between that and opening up the playbook a little bit more, I kind of like the idea of the Browns winning this one. And just, again, Cincinnati hasn't lost in a while. They're good, but I don't know if they're that kind of good where they can, win 10 in a row. So why not Cleveland? Let's do it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking they're going to have to score 28, 31 points to get that done. I think Cincinnati's offense is going to figure some things out like you do as well. Jeff Risdon, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
My pleasure. Go Cavs.
All right, Jeff Risdon, brownswire.com. Make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Cory Kinnan, also brownswire.com. Straight ahead, we'll take a look at the All-22 and some things that the Browns did against the Texans. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Cory Kinnan. He's also from brownswire.com. Wrote an article, what stood out from the All-22 Browns win over Texans. We're going to take a look at a couple of things. Cory, first thing we're going to look at that you delineated in the article, the RPO game. This is something Deshaun Watson is usually really, really good at, and he looked a little rusty in it.
Yeah, he looked like a player who hadn't played in 700 days, that's for sure. So, but, we'll see what happens the last 5 games here as he gets, acclimated to a new city and back to live action again. Pressure is a hard thing to simulate. You can work with the QB coach all you want. You can work in practice all you want, but live pressure is a hard thing to simulate. But as far as the RPO game, yeah, it gave the Browns a big opportunity to one, use his legs, and two, take advantage of linebackers who might be peaking because of his ability to use his legs. So, that's going to only help out Amari Cooper. It's only going to help out Donovan Peoples-Jones as well. So, it happened 3 or 4 times where, Watson saw a linebacker peeking, he pulled the ball out and ripped the slant, ripped the screen to Cooper. So it's going to be a big part of their game moving forward. But yeah, I think this was just the start, and we'll see what happens after he can kind of knock some rust off. We'll see how the offense kind of flows against the Bengals this week, and then just a 6-day week till the Ravens after that. So.
Yeah, the other thing that you saw in that, there's a lot of room in the middle of the field with the you could see from the all-22, those linebackers come flying up. And here's what I think you need to look for in that. When David Njoku is playing, he's going to be a guy that slips behind that, and he has the athleticism. Look at David Njoku running in the secondary against a safety. I like David Njoku in that matchup most times.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a huge David Njoku guy well before this year. I've been on record to say I thought he deserved more opportunities the past 2 seasons as well. And last year especially took advantage of every opportunity he got to lead into this role where he's breaking out now. So he's back this week. He's a high jump national champion, so he's got the athleticism. He's a tremendous player, and he's really broken out this year. So I'm excited to see how he gels moving forward, especially as you were saying down the seam as these linebackers begin to account for a quarterback who has the ability to use his legs to extend plays and to be creative outside the pocket.
Well, and that kind of goes into the next portion that we're going to look at in that all-22, running against lighter boxes. One of the things they're going to have to do is not stack the box, and take us through this.
Yeah, so there's in the article I differentiated 2 things. There's a difference between the offensive line getting a push and the run game still being successful. I think the offensive line has played pretty poorly over the past few games, and I thought they played pretty poorly against Houston. But Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb still combined for about 5.5 yards a carry. Nick Chubb at 4.7, Kareem Hunt at about 6.2. So they still managed to chunk out big yards on the ground. They rushed for almost 200 yards. They called 30 designed run plays. And that comes down to, again, linebackers and backside defensive ends can't just crash on the running back when they see run action. Because, again, we have a quarterback who has the ability to pull the ball out and run as well. So, those zone reads are becoming a big factor for the Browns now. They ran, I think I counted 3 times this week. So that's going to hold backside ends. That's going to hold the eyes of the linebacker a little bit more and allow, even without the offensive line playing particularly well, it's going to allow for lanes to open up for Nick Chubb, who I think has the best vision of any running back and the lightest footwork of any running back in the league, and Kareem Hunt, who is the kind of battering ram to that recipe as well. So, it's going to get a lot easier sledding for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt down the line here.
All right, we're going to look at a couple of things defensively from the all-22, and Greg Newsome graded out with his best game, and let's take a look at some of the things that you saw from Greg Newsome, especially this play here.
Yeah, Greg Newsome's a twitchy athlete, like everybody in the secondary. I mean, Emerson not particularly isn't as twitchy, but he's long and knows how to use that length. But it's good to see Greg kind of rebound. It's good to see these young players in general rebound after what's been just a bad year. I would say a step back for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. A step back for Denzel Ward, a step back for some of these guys that were obviously like huge contributors for the defense a year ago. So it was good to see Greg. Again, it was the Texans, but again, who your opponent is doesn't really nullify what you're seeing, your ability to react and break on a football. So I'm hoping this is an opportunity for Newsome to return to form of where he was last year. As he made the all-rookie team last year. So. It was good to see him build some confidence, and they're going to need him, as they go against Joe Burrow this week. And the Browns have had Joe Burrow's number in the past, so it'll be interesting to see. Jamar Chase is back this week, so the receiver workload that they're going to have to deal with is a little bit steeper this matchup around as well. So it'll be fun to watch Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward go up against Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, those guys.
All right, one of the last things we'll look at in the all-22 from the article that you did, Jordan Elliott, Tony Fields, a new linebacker, and they were pretty good in the run game against the Texans.
Yeah, so I thought the defensive tackles looked serviceable for the first time all season. They looked like NFL defensive tackles. One that has to do with, I think Jordan Elliott played probably his best game as a pro. I think Perrion Winfrey played his best game as a pro. I think Taven Bryan played his best game in a Cleveland Browns uniform. So once again, it's the Texans. It's a Texans, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. But the Bengals' offensive line isn't considered much better. So we'll see kind of how that impacts. The Bengals do get a lot wider in the run game, so they run a lot of wide zone concepts that the Browns run as well. So that's going to stretch them a little bit better. But you mentioned Tony Fields as well, and Tony Fields has been playing a lot more over the past 2 weeks. So when they come out in base defense, 3 linebackers on the field, no nickel. Fields has been that base will, and they'll slide JOK over to Sam. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Sione Takitaki now on IR. Will they stick Tony Fields at Mike after he's had a couple good weeks? Or I tend to think they're going to ease Deion Jones in there, a little bit more experience, a little bit more savvy at Mike right away. But we will see. I'm interested to see if they work Fields in at all at Mike, kind of the way they were with Anthony Walker and Jacob Phillips early in the season. They were kind of swapping out series. So I'm interested to see how that Takitaki injury impacts both the playing time of Jones and Fields and how they handle that.
All right, before we go to break, let's listen in. John Johnson talked about the success the defense have had the last couple of weeks against the Bengals as well, and creating some turnovers. Here's John Johnson.
I think it's just like a division game. They're all tough, every division across the league, and that's one game that we want to show out. They got talkative guys over there, so it's kind of like a competitive matchup, and as football players, you want to compete, so that's like a prime matchup, and we enjoy it.
And John, they got like the best set of receivers, or one of them, and you guys seem to rise to the occasion. Does that help make you rise to the occasion, though?
Absolutely. Like I said, it's all about competing. They're a competitive group. They want to get the better of us, and we want to get the better of them. So it's always a prime matchup, and we're looking forward to it.
John, are you a believer that turnovers come in bunches?
100%. I can't explain it, but it's like sacks. They come in bunches. Turnovers, they come in bunches. So we had a few last week. We said we get some more this week.
And they will need them. The Browns are bottom 5 giveaway takeaway, and that's one of the reasons that they're sitting where they sit at 5-7.
Yeah, and they really haven't given the ball away that much. I don't feel like. So Jacoby Brissett had a couple game-ending interceptions on drives where pressure was on him to kind of make plays where he shouldn't have been in that position. Nick Chubb had a fumble, and obviously the short fumble. But I think that's just more a reflection on the lack of turnovers this defense is creating. It was really good to see, from the first play on, defense is creating turnovers, but especially on punt return, that punt return fumble and Tony Fields kind of sticking his nose onto the football on that quarterback sneak. It felt to me like they were hunting the football a little bit more against the Texans. So that's really good to see. I saw a lot of defensive shifts in philosophy this week, and I hope that's just the beginning. I think Joe Woods is coaching for his job, so Joe Woods better hope that that's the beginning as well, because that's kind of where we're at with 5 games to go. But it would definitely be a huge boost to, again, the offense has been kind of struggling. So can the defense now rise like they did last week and kind of help level out the play a little bit, where the offense doesn't feel the pressure that they have to score every single possession?
Cory Kinnan from BrownsWire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also take a look at strength of schedule as the Browns move forward. Got to win out to have any chance. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Cory Kinnan from BrownsWire.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, 5 games left. All must-win games if the Browns have any chance to be relevant. A defense that is finally playing turnover-type football. A special teams finally showing signs of hope. But Dave, I believe it's going to come down to the play of the offense if we are going to be successful finishing out. Even though we have rated high offensively so far, in my opinion, right from the beginning, Kevin Stefanski failed as a play caller by not utilizing his 2 best offensive weapons together at the same time. If he would have schemed his running and passing attack around Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, giving the ball in the space to use their outstanding skills and desires, our season right now would be for a playoff spot instead of one more loss and done. Kevin, you have it to change now to help Deshaun Watson out and finish the season successfully.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Cory, I don't think, and again, I'm a big proponent of Chubb and Hunt together. The offense hasn't been the problem, though. The play calling hasn't been the problem. The defense pulled a no-show on us early in the season.
Right. I mean, again, coming into this week, the Browns were ranked top 5 in almost every analytical category of offense, and just looking around the league, nobody does. That's just not the mold of the NFL. I think there's, because fans have this I don't know, willingness, this desire to want to call Cleveland a blue collar city, and it is, looking at the makeup of the city, they want to see their football team replicate that, but it's not the 1980s anymore. It's not Biner Mac. NFL teams don't win that way. I think he's doing a fine job of using Nick Chubb the best that he can, and then using Kareem Hunt as a kind of a change of pace. I think any way he would use these running backs, fans would find a way to call in and find something else that he should be doing better. But again, I think it just comes down to people want this football team in Cleveland to be that personification of the city, and that's just not the way teams win in the NFL anymore. And I'd rather win games, and I think that's kind of what it comes down to for the Browns offensively as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Some late-breaking news as far as personnel goes. So the Browns have claimed Jalen Darden. Was with the Buccaneers, wide receiver and a kick returner, young guy, a speed guy, very much a speed guy. Thought they might be interested in the draft, and in conjunction with that, Anthony Schwartz, who was in the concussion protocol, has been put on IR. So that's an interesting move. Darden's a guy that did return kicks and return punts, but he is definitely a speed wide receiver and a young guy.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the Browns incorporate him onto the field, because again, obviously Donovan Peoples-Jones is thriving as a punt returner, and I think Jerome Ford has been more than adequate as a kick returner as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they utilize him. I tend to think, this week they used Demetric Felton in motion a lot. He was on the field, I think 25 snaps. He was on the field a lot. Never got a target, really. Never saw the football come his way, but I wonder if they might transition that kind of role to a guy like Jalen Darden. They did that a lot with Schwartz early in the season and with Schwartz last season as well. So they're obviously looking at ways to get jet motion involved. And I wonder if this is a role where they feel like Darden, a guy who only has 69 receiving yards in a season and a half with the Buccaneers, can kind of find a role in the NFL. Coming out of North Texas, his last year received for 1,200 yards and 19 touchdowns. So obviously a really productive receiver at the group of 5 level at North Texas. So never got his footing in Tampa. So we'll see what happens now that he's in Cleveland. But I'm more looking forward to, because I don't think you can pull Donovan Peoples-Jones off special teams. I probably wouldn't tinker with Jerome Ford off of kickoff. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they use him early on.
Yeah, young guy that has something you can't teach in speed, so it doesn't hurt to collect guys like that. This is from the NFL on CBS. Remaining strength of schedule. Bears have the toughest at 729. Patriots, Bengals tied for 4th, 567. The Browns are 12th, so their remaining strength of schedule is 524. The Ravens have one of the easiest. They are tied for 24th. Not an easy. I mean, it's a lot easier than it was in the stretch before last week's game. Once you get past the Bengals and the Ravens, the next two, it gets games that the Browns, quite frankly, should win.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at that strength of schedule as well, teams that have a harder strength of schedule than the Browns, throughout the rest of the way are teams like the New York Giants or New York Jets, teams like the New England Patriots that hold tiebreakers over the Browns in the wild card race as well. So, with the Ravens having that 24th easiest schedule, it's pretty easy to envision their pathway of winning the North this year. But again, the Bengals have a tougher strength of schedule. The Jets, the Patriots all have a tougher strength of schedule. So again, you got to get through these two divisional opponents, and we're not looking past the Bengals, not looking past the Ravens. But if they can kind of get through this, even 1-1, there's a real chance that their playoff hopes are still alive, and realistically still alive at that. All right.
Along those lines, Bleacher Report, unlikely NFL teams that could make the playoffs. And they list the Browns. So while they only have an estimated 9% chance of becoming one of the AFC's 7 playoff teams, the Browns do have the talent, especially on offense, to beat the odds. And you know what? If Deshaun Watson looks like the Deshaun Watson of a couple of years ago, yeah, they really do.
Yeah, for sure. Again, the skill positions are there. The breakout season from Njoku. Amari Cooper's been everything you could have hoped Amari Cooper would be, especially for a 5th-round pick. Donovan Peoples-Jones has emerged in a way that I didn't expect. He's on pace for almost 1,000 yards. So the weapons are there. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, again, now with lighter boxes. The Browns, with all due respect, should have everything at their disposal. I think, they might have been handicapped for the first 2.5 years of the Kevin Stefanski era. I think there probably is a page of the playbook that he's never got to explore since he's been the head coach of Cleveland that he might now be able to get into. Maybe not right away. Might take a few games to incorporate, your new quarterback in as best as possible. But they have every opportunity to be the best offense in the NFL moving forward.
Cory Kinnan, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Cory.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Cory Kinnan, make sure you check him out. It's brownswire.com. There's some real interesting stuff, articles. You saw the all-22 breakdown we do. Make sure you check him out. Cory Kinnan from brownswire.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, it's Jackson McCurry, co-host of the Dawgland and the Top Dogs podcast. We're still talking Browns. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Jason McCurry on the player who will keep opposing coaches up all night heading into Week 14.
The Cincinnati Bengals should be worried about Nicholas Chubb. This guy, his last 4 games, 420 yards and 6 touchdowns. And Burrow has not beaten the Browns. And I know he won't be faced up with Nick Chubb, but this guy has killed them. And for the Cleveland Browns this year, 4-0 when Chubb is over 20 carries. 1-7 when he's underneath those 20 carries. Only win coming against your very own Houston Texans. So, Nick Chubb, yes, he is a monster out there. Zach Taylor should be up all night thinking about this guy. How are we going to stop him? How many people are we going to put on in the box? Or are we going to have to bring people off the sideline, play with 13 guys out there to stop Nick Chubb from running wild? You see what he did in that first game versus the Cincinnati Bengals.
And, yeah, it was on Halloween night, 23 carries, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Bengals. Let's welcome in Jackson McCurry, co-host of the Dawgland and the Top Dogs podcast. So, Jackson, I can't imagine you're going to put more guys in the box with Deshaun Watson playing. I'm not doing that. I am not doing that.
No, not a chance. I mean, Deshaun brings another element to the game that Jacoby Brissett just couldn't, and that's his mobility. You've seen it on Sunday. I mean, I didn't see too many stacked boxes coming from Houston's defensive front, so I wouldn't expect that to change this week against Cincinnati. I think defenses have to be more honest now because you have Deshaun who has that scrambling ability, and I think that bodes well for Nick Chubb, who has dominated the Bengals throughout his career. He's put up almost 800 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns in the 8 matchups. He's averaging 5.3 yards per carry. I mean, he had a great night on Halloween, and I think with Watson back there, I think he's going to continue to dominate opposing defenses down the stretch.
Yeah, and again, I get, the rust. That was real. I kind of minimized that. But the difference is if you put, the way a defensive coordinator, I think, is going to look at this, if we put, 9 in the box and we have, man-to-man coverage outside, there's nobody to help. At least with the lighter boxes, you got guys behind that can help. It's a big explosive play that you're daring Deshaun Watson to beat you with. And I don't think you're going to do that.
No, not at all. I think, the way the Browns have been able to stop, the guys like Lamar Jackson and stuff, having an extra linebacker, how we utilize JOK, maybe that's a way defenses can stop this offense. But it's tough because you have the running backs with Chubb and Hunt, and it was great to see Hunt get back involved in the game on Sunday against Houston. Then you got the wide receivers to worry about. Now Njoku's back. We haven't seen an offense like this in Cleveland in quite some time, and it's going to be hard for defenses to try to stop it.
The other thing is the receiving core, and you mentioned it. So this is from Marcus Mosher. Most games with 50-plus yards receiving this season. So Travis Kelce and Stephon Diggs tied for 1 at 11 each. Donovan Peoples-Jones is tied for 4 with 8 of them. And Amari Cooper is tied for 5th with 7 of them. And keep in mind, that doesn't factor in David Njoku, who's been beat up a little bit. So there is a variety of weapons, even in the pass game, that Deshaun Watson has.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we knew what Amari Cooper was going to be when we traded for him. DPJ has shown flashes the first couple years, and you just thought maybe with elevated QB play, you finally get the untapped potential of Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I think we've seen that this year. He's been consistent throughout the year. He's got a career high in receptions with 5 games to go. He's a career high with receiving yards. He's only got 1 touchdown, but I think he's been great. And, he's, like Cory mentioned in the last segment, he's on pace for almost 1,000 yards. He's been great in the special teams, which I think has been an added boost to him. I think Peoples-Jones is in line for a contract extension this offseason. It's going to be interesting to see how much the Browns are willing to pay him, but I would try to keep him around. You have Cooper on the books for the next couple years. The rest of the wide receiver room is very shaky. I would try to lock down Peoples-Jones, who's in a contract year next year. 10 to 12 million would be what I would try to offer him, but I think the Browns need to find a way to keep him around.
Yeah, I would agree. He has played his way into being an important part moving forward. Well, the question Kevin Stefanski was asked is, how quickly can Deshaun Watson get comfortable? Stefanski answered that as well as what he's trying to do to get him comfortable?
I don't know if I could put, a time frame on that type of thing, Jake. I know he's working very hard. He's locked in on the game plan, working hard at practice. So, like I mentioned to you guys before, I think there were things that come up in your first game back that you have to just correct. And I think all those things are what we're working on Monday, day after the game, and then into today as well.
Can you tell Kevin if he's putting more pressure on himself? Because there are a lot of expectations of him.
I don't think so. I think Deshaun understands the role he plays for us and in our offense on our team. I think he really narrows his focus to make sure that he's ready to go on Sunday.
He talks about throwing with anticipation. Is that harder to do when you haven't played in so long and it's a new system?
Yeah, certainly game reps help when you're talking about anticipation, but I'd say all types of throws and all types of plays, game reps will continue to help. But he's very comfortable with what we're doing. Again, focus for him, for our offense, for our team is having a really good Wednesday.
And today is Wednesday. Jackson, let me ask you this. My thought is maybe you run him a little bit more to get him comfortable, have him get some positive plays. And the other thing is, you don't want him thinking, maybe, if he gets hit, it's, back to reacting and playing football.
Yeah, and I think you saw that on Sunday when he took his first couple hits. I think he was probably wondering, what am I going to do once I'm hit? How am I going to anticipate this? And I don't think you can, especially a guy that hasn't played in 700 days and, you don't know what you're going to walk into in Houston Stadium. Obviously, that was his home turf for the first several seasons. It wasn't a big crowd, so that probably helped it a little bit. But, yeah, I agree with you. Get him to run some more. I know they were running some RPOs out there on Sunday, but it seemed like, once he gets some positive plays and gets into a rhythm, I thought, maybe we would see the old Watson, but the rust was apparent there. He did have some good throws, but yeah, maybe incorporate some option plays, get him to run down the field a little bit, get some positive yardage and, get into a consistent rhythm that, maybe he'll feel more comfortable and won't feel so pressured, because some of those throws just did not look like the old Deshaun Watson. But then again, there was plenty of rust on him, to say the least.
Yeah, it almost looked like he was kind of thinking and not reacting. And he's a guy you want to react. If he's having success in reacting and confident, I think we're going to see a more of the type of guy we expect to. Jackson McCurry and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Joe Burrow as well as Kevin Stefanski about the game coming up. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jackson McCurry, co-host of the Dawgland and Top Dogs podcast. Kevin Stefanski talked about just how good Joe Burrow is and the success the Browns have had against him.
Extremely accurate, makes great decisions with the football, very athletic, can make every throw, runs their offense really well. I think they do a great job. Coach Taylor, Coach Callahan, what they're trying to do with him and that entire offense, I think they do a really nice job. And he's just very talented, can make plays within the frame offense, can make plays off schedule. Really, really good player.
Some of your best defensive games against him. Any idea as to why? Is it a matchup thing? Is it do you think that is?
Yeah, you don't pick up where you left off. You don't start this game where the last game ended. It's 0-0. They're going to have their guys ready to go. We have to have our guys ready to go.
And Jackson, it's unfortunate you can't pick up where you left off because Halloween night was pretty good at the end of that game.
Yeah, it just seems like Joe Burrow has been able to dominate every team he's played against in the league except one, and that's the Cleveland Browns. And yeah, you wish you could pick up right where we left off on Halloween night because the defense was rocking, the offense was humming right along, putting 32 points on the board, I think it was. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's something about the Browns that Joe Burrow just does not like, and you can just tell right away. And it could be Myles Garrett that Burrow mentioned in his press conference today that haunts him when he steps toe to toe with the Browns. But yeah, you just wish it was the same formula every time. But things change. Obviously, Jamar Chase is out there. He wasn't on Halloween night, but yeah, the Browns just seem to have Burrow's number, and hopefully that trend continues on Sunday. Well,
Joe Burrow did talk about the Browns defense and how they have been able to shut him down.
They got really good players. We haven't executed up to our ability, so we're going to have to execute the game plan to the best of our ability and move the ball, put points on the board, and keep their offense off the field.
Is there anything that they do uniquely that maybe other teams don't? I mean, that maybe why you all struggle the way that you all have?
Well, they have Myles Garrett. That's different from everybody else.
Well, yeah, that's pretty good point. So he's sharp too.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he knows that he's got to watch for number 95 because Myles just consistently gets after him back there. And yes, they've revamped the offensive line. Jeff mentioned it in the first segment that their offensive line has played really well since Cleveland defensive front dominated them on Halloween night. But I mean, as good as their offensive line's been, have they been able to play a guy against Myles Garrett? I think TJ Watt was just coming back when they played Pittsburgh. But Myles, just seems to find a way to dominate on these divisional matchups. So I would expect nothing less on Sunday. But I mean, if their offensive line has played better, maybe they find a way to stop 95, but I'll have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, and again, Joe Burrow's really good. He's a competitive guy. You can be sure he just wants to beat the Browns so he can stop having to ask your O-end, fill in the blank against them. So that's a talented quarterback who figures to be motivated. When you look at this game, what are some of the things you think the Browns need to do, some of the keys for them to get a much-needed win?
Yeah, obviously, Denzel Ward said it today. Every game from this point is a must-win game. The divisional matchups mean much more, obviously. We still have a chance at the division, even though Cincinnati and Baltimore keep finding ways to win. Offensively, get Watson into a rhythm. And, I think that starts with establishing the running game. Nick Chubb has dominated Cincinnati, like I said earlier. Get that running game going. The stat about 20 carries, I think, is a little bit overreactionary. It just so happens when he gets 20-plus carries, we win. Chubb dominates. I'd start with that, establishing the run. And on defense, we talked about it. Find a way to pressure Burrow into making some bad decisions. Last year, every game that he's played, the Browns defense has stepped up and played well. I think that's what they got to do, pressure, and not just Myles. Clowney, Alex Wright and Isaiah Thomas got in the mix on that last one, maybe some of the D tackles. Just find a way to generate pressure on that offensive line that has played really well and make Burrow feel uncomfortable and keep generating turnovers. It worked really well against Houston. If they can pick off Burrow or, force him to fumble the ball, I think the Browns will be in a good situation to win on Sunday.
The other thing I would keep an eye on is I think David Njoku has a huge game. Deshaun Watson is really good, and we showed some of the RPOs with Cory. David Njoku is a guy that can get behind the linebackers, and if the offensive line gives him enough time, he can get deep.
Yeah, definitely. I think he had a good game on Halloween night against them, and having Njoku back out there will open things up, not just for himself, but Cooper, Peoples-Jones, and like I mentioned, the running game. I think having all the horses out there on offense is going to make this offense look very explosive against a really good Cincinnati defense. But do they have the horses to match up against all ours? They didn't on Halloween night, and if everybody's back at full strength. I don't know if they're going to be able to on Sunday.
Yeah, and this one's critical. Lamar Jackson is banged up, and you don't want to look ahead, but this is by far the toughest game remaining on the schedule. And I think if the Browns can get this one, I think then they start to look at it and go, okay, maybe we can get this done.
Absolutely. You win on Sunday, and then next Saturday against Baltimore, whether it's Huntley or Lamar, if the Browns, the defense can build upon what they did against Houston. And we all know Houston's not a great football team. But if you upset Cincinnati and then you go into next Saturday against Baltimore and you find a way to win there, playoff chances grow exponentially with, 3 weeks to go then. And anything can happen at that point.
Yep, if you get those next two, you're 7-7, and you're right. The sky is the limit at that point. Jackson McCurry, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, Jackson McCurry. Make sure you check him out, co-host of the Dawgland and the Top Dogs podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.